But speaking of the Orioles, Tim, I got to ask you about a couple moves. And that, by me asking you, Zach, I'm going to take a breather. You can ask Tim about some of the names that we're hearing.
Yeah. So, Tim, every year it feels like, especially recently over the past few, it's been, hey, the Orioles need starting pitching. The Orioles need pitching help. And this year is no different. We've seen reports that the Orioles could be, in on these big name pitchers. In your opinion, is there a guy out there maybe specifically, or a couple of guys that in your head, you're like, hey, these guys are guys the Orioles should go after because they can take them to the next level? Are there guys out there that kind of stick out to you?
Well, Valdez is out there, and he's got great stuff. That combination of the sinker and the curveball are unhittable. Michael King is really good once he's healthy. I know Dylan Cease had a difficult year last year, but he could really help the Orioles, I would think. Ranger Suarez is a vastly underrated pitcher, kind of lost among all the other really good pitchers on the Phillies. Shota Imanaga is now a free agent. Go look at that guy's numbers the last couple of years, and suddenly he's out there. Every one of those guys would be either the number one or at worst the number two starter on the Orioles. And that's what they have to add. I mean, we saw what Trevor Rogers did at the end. He was, all year he was great, but and Dean Kramer's a good pitcher, and they got Wells is coming back. We don't know if they're going to, So they got to go get a starting pitcher if they're going to go from 75 wins back to contention. Because I'm telling you, fellas, this was not a mirage by the Blue Jays. They've got a lot of things figured out now. The Red Sox are getting better. The Yankees finished poorly, but they're going to get better from here. I really believe that. And if the Orioles don't go do something, they're going to have trouble competing again in what I think suddenly is a pretty darn good division.
With that being said, then, Tim, we know that they need to get some pitching, but where on the priority do they need a veteran bat? Because where the Orioles have the advantage, at least in the AL East, is they have a nucleus of young talent. And if it comes to fruition, they're in a good position. But the problem is that's a big question mark. There's no guarantee that Jackson Holliday, which you believe is Jackson going to become that all-star? Is Colton Cowser going to be able to make his adjustments and move forward? A guy that almost won Rookie of the Year 2 years ago now, or last year. Is the priority to get a veteran bat in the middle of that order? And if yes, where do you put him? Because we were going through a guy that I love. You mentioned Blue Jays, and I know it's not going to fit in Baltimore. I love Bo Bichette as a hitter. I think he is so underrated, and people forgot maybe how good he was. Game 7, his name would have been up there in the history books for what he did coming back on off of Ohtani, but he quietly was their best RBI guy before going down. He's really good with 2 strikes. But obviously you'd have to move one of your pieces, Westburg or Holiday, but that's an impact veteran bat. Do you think the Orioles are going to prioritize getting a guy like that, or try to find value?
Well, they have to go get a big hitter for the middle of the order, and Bo Bichette fits absolutely. The guy didn't play from September 6th until the World Series, and his first at bat, of course, he gets a hit. I talked to Nathan Lucas at the batting cage one day and said, what's the deal with that guy? And he just looks at he's been one of the best hitters in baseball for the last 5 years. How can people not recognize that? So yes, he would be a perfect fit in a lot of ways for the Orioles, who need a bat, because we all know last year they didn't score enough runs last year, period. So they need Kyle Schwarber for the middle of the order to hit 40 to 50 homers. They need, Kyle Tucker to play right field every day. They need one of those two. They need to go get, Alex Bregman and put him at third base. I mean, they're not going to get all of these guys, but if they get one of these guys, it is a huge advantage for them, because I refuse to believe they can't be a good offensive team, but they absolutely have to add a middle of the order hitter if they're going to go from 75 wins to 90 wins and get themselves back into contention.
Zach, you have one more follow-up, and then Tim, I got a couple things after, and I'll get you out of here. But Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. How realistic do you think it is that the Orioles kind of open up the checks, the wallet this year, because we've been saying for a few years, it's like, hey, they're one batter away, middle of the order bat. They're that number one starter away. Is this finally the year? I know they made that trade for Corbin Burns 2 years ago to kind of supplement. They knew they were losing Bradish for a majority of the season. But do you think this is kind of that year that maybe the Orioles go out there and are willing to spend more money than usual?
Yeah, I think it is the year, because it has to be the year because of what happened last year. You can't tantalize everyone with 3 years in a row like they played and then lose 75 games and leave people shaking their heads. You can't have that when the people in Baltimore have supported this team. So yes, I think now's the time, but it's easy for us to say that because it's not our money. And Kyle Schwarber, the Phillies are going to overwhelm him to bring him back. Kyle Tucker is going to be the best overall player, defense and offense, on the market. The Orioles are in huge competition to get any of these guys. I know the Red Sox really want Alex Bregman back, and I think I know he wants to go back, but at the right price. So yes, they have to spend money, but let's be clear, they are up against some serious competition because so many other teams need to add players also.
Yeah, especially in that AL East that we've been mentioning. A lot of these guys would fit in New York, would fit with the Red Sox. It's going to be very curious to see what happens. And to your point, someone will overpay. It always happens. Heck, Juan Soto, we knew was going to go for a pretty penny, Tim, $750 million. That maybe wasn't the exact number I was thinking, but the Mets paid for him. Why? They felt he would make that impact. So it'll be curious to see. I always love the baseball season.